All right, everyone. We're back. We're back to action. Thanks for sticking in there. All right. Now get yourselves ready to soak in the sage-like words from none other than Ron Miscavige, father of David Miscavige, who is the current leader of the Church of Scientology. Ron's been in Scientology in the fold, to put it mildly, for 42 years, and managed to escape their global headquarters in California in 2012. He has kindly agreed to share details of his arduous journey with us, from captivity and harassment to the newfound hope. Ron is raising his voice in the hopes that families like his are not drawn in and later torn apart because of religious oppression. He is representing being a local Wisconsinite, and unsurprisingly is a raging Green Bay Packers fan. Go Pack. He's also a candidate for Most Interesting Man of the Year. Please welcome to the stage, Ron Miscavige.
Okay, so I'm on a short leash tonight, so I only have a half an hour, and normally I do about 3 times that long, so I'm going to go rat-tat-tat. If you pay attention, well, you're going to pay attention. What the hell are you doing here anyway if not paying attention? But I do want to give you a brief synopsis of the church and point out the bullying that goes on, and I think that's something you might be interested in hearing, right? Okay, so now as my MC announced, I've been in Scientology for 42 years. I was on staff for 26 and a half years. When I say I was in Scientology, I was a public Scientologist for many years. And that's a person who is a Scientologist, and they come in and they pay for services at an organization. When you're on staff, you're the people who deliver the service, or you run the church from the higher up. I was posted at the international headquarters in Hemet, California for the entire 26 and a half years that I was in Scientology. Now, my wife and I escaped from the church. We didn't leave, now get that. We escaped on March 25th in 2012. A year and 3 months later, 2 private investigators were caught who had been following me. One private investigator was trying to buy a house around the corner from mine. I live in West Dallas. And neighbor saw him and thought he looked suspicious, so she called the cops. Nick Pye from the West Dallas police came, started questioning the guy. The guy gave him a bunch of crap. So he said, I'll tell you what, you're under arrest. Can I check the trunk of your car? The guy said, no problem. He went to the van, a blacked out van, and he found in that trunk 5 license plates from 5 different states, 5 handguns, a stun gun, 2 rifles, 1 fitted up with a silencer, and over 2,000 rounds of ammunition. Needless to say, the guy was arrested on the spot, and he was taken in and interrogated, because you can't walk around with that kind of hardware trailing somebody and think that the cops are going to say, oh well, have a nice day, see you later. When he was interrogated, and by the way, I should tell you this now, my website is therealronmiscavige.com. If you go on that website, you can hear the interrogation of those private investigators. I have it on there. So everything I'm going to say that they said, you can hear for yourself. We found out that they were getting paid $10,000 a week to follow me. All right? They reported on my every doing from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. They told of an incident that happened in Janesville when I was there shopping one day. Hot summer day, I was in an Aldi's market. I'm sure you're familiar with Aldi's, right? And I come out with some groceries, went over to the car, and I had a pocket t-shirt on. And my cell phone was in my left-hand t-shirt pocket. So I bent over to put some groceries in the car, and I thought my cell phone was going to fall out. So I grabbed my left chest with my right arm. Unbeknownst to me, they were looking at me from this van. One said to the other, and by the way, their names were Dwayne Powell and Daniel Powell. Dwayne Powell is the father of Daniel Powell. They work for a team. Dwayne said to Daniel, it looks like the target is having a heart attack. And by the way, they referred to me as the target with a goddamn silencer on a gun, all right? Now, he said, what should we do? Let's call in. So they called their contact. The contact says, hang on a second, I'll get somebody on the phone for you. A guy come on the phone, identified himself as David Miscavige, that's my son, and said to them, listen, if it's his time to die, let him die. Don't do anything, don't intervene. Now, as you all know, I wrote a book, or if you don't know, I did write a book called Rootless Scientology, My Son David Miscavige and Me. Even with that happening, I was not going to write a book. But I did call David, try to get in touch with him to tell him, listen, get these guys off my back. I don't want to be followed. I couldn't get through. I spoke to an attorney instead, and we talked for about an hour to no avail, so I'll let it go. So then I made a CD of this interview with the private investigators, and I took it down to Florida. My wife and I went to Florida, and I wanted to play this for my daughters because by this time, because I had left the church, they forced my family to disconnect from me. In other words, my two daughters, my grandchildren, none of them spoke to me ever again after that. I don't know how many great-grandchildren, I think it's 7. I've never met them. I have no news for them. That's what you do. That's what they do to you if you leave the church. You get your family taken away from you. So I was going to take down this CD, play it for my daughters to show how I felt about it. David will let me die. Within 30 miles of Clearwater, Florida, I had 3 PIs following me. And all the time I was down there, I had private investigators following me around. I went to see my daughter, Lori. She wasn't home. I went to see my daughter, Denise. Her husband came to the door, and he cracked the door open about this much. And I said, listen, I'd like to speak to Denise and sort this out. He said, Ron, you got to talk to the church because that's the only way you're going to sort it out. I said, Jerry, I might as well talk to myself in a telephone booth. It's not going to do any good. I need to speak to Denise. We went back and forth for about 20 minutes. Finally, I said, Jerry, that's her husband's name. What does this mean? He said, Ron, Denise and I are through with you and Becky forever. That was the moment I decided I'm going to write a book. I'm going to expose their abuses. I figured if I did a blog, what would I have? 2,000, 3,000 people listen to what I have to say? I knew if I did a book, I could get possibly in national coverage of this. As it turned out, I did get a book deal. The book came out on May 6th. Last year, the first week it was out, it hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. I was on the Thank you. Thank you very much. The whole point being, I wanted to expose this to as many people as possible. I was on 2020, I was on Late Night with Seth Meyer, with Megyn Kelly, with about, I don't know, 50 different radio stations and blogs. The book is out in Australia, it's out in England. The book is coming out in Germany in October, as a matter of fact. I want to expose this to the world. And I know that Leah Remini and Mike Rinder, did you ever watch the show, The Aftermath, with Leah Remini? Great show, right? That's what you have to do. You have to expose these people for the abuses. And when these abuses were going on, I didn't think they were abuses, but they're actually bullying us. And they bully staff members. I'm going to get into this, and I'll get into it pretty quick, but I just wanted to give you a backdrop of why I'm on this stage talking to you here. You with me so far? Okay. Now, briefly, how I got in Scientology was this. I might as well tell you, I had a good friend back in the 60s. His name was Nelson Sandy. He was a fellow musician. By the way, I'm a musician. And he was a singer. And he said to me one point, I used to be a doctor, but I lost my patience. It was fabulous, a one-off. As a matter of fact, we were in a bar one night playing, and we come off the stage. I went over to the bar, and a guy came over and said, Nelson, you're a great singer. Can I buy you a drink? He says, no, but can I have the money? He's not slow in the uptake, believe me. So he said, how would you like to make an extra $100,000 this year? I says, fabulous. So he introduced me to a thing called Holiday Magic, multi-marketing thing. I met a guy doing Holiday Magic who said he was a Scientologist. And I says, wait a minute, what is that? He told me about it a little bit. I got interested. I went to a place, found out a little bit more about it. Kind of my interest petered out. But then there was something happening in my life that I really wanted to get handled, and that is this. My son David, when he was born, he was cursed with unbelievably bad asthma. I mean, I tried every unusual solution in a book to try to make him better. Didn't work. So I finally said, you know what? I'm going to take you to see a Scientologist and have him do some counseling for you. So I took him to see a guy. He took him in for 45 minutes. And when he come out, he was smiling. I said, David, how did it go? He says, Dad, handled. And unbelievably, he never had another severe asthmatic attack as a little kid. Now, I'm giving you a little bit of the good stuff, because these beginning things that you learn in Scientology are very helpful. But I will tell you, the bad far outweighs the good. Far outweighs it, okay? I was going to give you an analogy. I don't want to do it because I don't want to align them with some famous rat. All right. So anyway, with David getting handled, for the moment anyway, I thought, you know what? I'm going to get my whole family in. And that's how we get started. I got my whole family in. We enjoyed it as public Scientologists, okay? And after a while, I joined staff. I joined staff and I joined what's called the C organization. Now, the C organization, and I'm going to relate this to the Catholic Church because I'm sure most of you know how the Catholic Church operates. They have priests and they have cardinals and they have a pope. Well, the C organization is something that you go and you dedicate any future lives you have to Scientology. And I was posted at a place in Hemet, California, where the highest echelon works and lives, and they run Scientology. I was there for 26 and a half years, and I can tell you this. The first part of working there, hard work, but very enjoyable. And because I'm a musician, do any of you remember a rock player named Edgar Winter? Anybody remember him? Edgar Winter? Yeah, some people do. The first thing I did was I did an album with Edgar Winter, and the album was based on a book that L. Ron Hubbard wrote called Mission. I'm drawing a blank on it. Boy, you talk about covering up that part of your past, huh? Mission Earth. I worked with Isaac Hayes. He was a Scientologist, and so I had some pretty good times. But as time went by, it changed drastically. And what I mean by that is this. And I'm going to refer back to David now, because when he was growing up, he and I had a great relationship. I enjoyed him as a little kid, and he enjoyed me as his father. We had a lot of great times together. But once he got into the Sea Org, and he joined when he was 16 years old, he did an about face. He went from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde, and I'll tell you why. Did you ever hear the expression, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely? You ever hear that? Okay, that was said by a gentleman by the name of Lord Acton. He was a member of British Parliament from about, well, the late 1800s to the early 1900s. I'll tell you what else he also said. He said, great men tend to be bad men. Now, when David got in the Sea organization, within 7 months he was working with L. Ron Hubbard. And as fortune would have it, he kept that position and kept going higher and higher up. As a matter of fact, he got to the point where he was the one person that was between any communication that would go to L. Ron Hubbard or any communication that would come from L. Ron Hubbard to people in the organizations or public, which is a powerful position to be in. In other words, you're running the communication lines of the guy who was the founder of the religion. You with me so far? Okay. When L. Ron Hubbard died, he saw his opportunity, and he rose right to the top. And here's how he did it. I told you about him getting handled with his asthma, temporary. When he was a kid, he never had a bad attack. At one point when he was in the Sea organization, he had a terrible asthmatic attack, and they had to take him to a hospital. And while he was there getting treatment, he came up with this realization. And when he got out, he told Paul Grady, that was the person who took him there. He said, Paul, I had a terrific realization, and that is this. Power is not granted, it is assumed. And when L. Ron Hubbard died, he assumed the leadership of the church, took people away who would oppose him, put his own people in, and kept on rising to the top, and he assumed to be the leader of the Church of Scientology at a very young age. That is how he did it. He just assumed that he was going to take this over. He was never appointed by L. Ron Hubbard. There was nothing ever written that it should be him, but that's what he did. And in the early 90s, he got the church tax exemption with the IRS. And from that point on, he's run the church. And to be honest with you, he's gone from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde. Now, I'm going to go into how some of the staff are treated. And you may have read, I'm sure some of you have looked on the internet to find out about this, right? Some have, okay. Well, first of all, many people would say to me, why did you stay so long? You must be an idiot, man. 26 and a half years? Let me tell you something. You are indoctrinated into thinking that what you're doing is for the benefit of all mankind, and that to keep L. Ron Hubbard going out and disseminating is going to change the planet for the better. Now, how do they do this? Well, I'll tell you how. First of all, L. Ron Hubbard on his lectures is a very authoritarian type of speaker. He speaks with certainty, has a booming voice, and he's what's called an authority figure. Now, people have a tendency to listen to an authority figure. As an example, when I was a little kid, I joined the Boy Scouts, and we were up in the woods, and I was trying to get my merit badge for cooking, and I'm making oatmeal. And I start eating this oatmeal, and I'm crunching. There's a lot of dirt in it. And I said to Robert Shemansky, who's the scout leader, he was a big, tough kid. I mean, I looked up to him. He's like an authority. I said, Robert, I got dirt in this. He said, Ronnie, you should eat a peck of dirt a year. It's good for you. I believed him. He was an authority figure. So, here's how this works. When you get in Scientology, you're given a lot of little basic things that you can use in life that are useful. Like one of them was the correct communication formula and various other things that help your interpersonal relationships. So you start thinking everything I hear is going to be true because so far everything they gave me works. As it goes by and things are introduced that don't quite make sense, you say to yourself, well, it doesn't make sense, but I'll accept it. You see how that works? In other words, it's brainwashing. So that's how you continually get your mind altered into believing everything that they say is going to be true. Now, you go on study every day for 2.5 hours. That's more indoctrination. All right? So now you're at the point where you're going to believe everything they say, and no matter what, you're going to stay there. But now, here's what happened. At the international base, here's how it turned. Any letter we would write out had to be left in an envelope unsealed. Security forces would read it. If there was something in there that you shouldn't say, it was sent back, and you'd have to rewrite the letter. On a personal phone call, you had to go through a switchboard. You couldn't have a cell phone. There was somebody listening in on the other end. You couldn't leave the compound to go to a store in town to buy things. You had to buy it on the internet, or you had to buy it at the canteen. So at first, this seems terrible, but after a while, you think, well, this is the way it is, and what I'm doing is going to help all of mankind, so I'm going to tolerate all this stuff. And that's how you have a tendency to stay there. But with those things happening, you start questioning it. You start thinking, wait a minute, we're looking to make mankind more free, yet I don't have any personal freedoms. One of the things that stops people is this. You're there maybe 20, 30 years. A lot of these people don't have any money. You get paid $50 a week. They don't have a car. They have no place to go. They have no job skills. So they figure they're going to gut it out, and maybe someday it's going to get better. But it never gets better. At any rate, my wife and I decided to leave. We planned it out for 6 months. It literally took 6 months for us to work out how we're going to get out. And we did escape, and here I am. Now, I'll give you an example. Thank you. Now, you call it stress, you call it bullying, it's about the same thing. But listen to this. I used to have, do you know what eczema is? Do you know, it's a skin rash? Did you ever hear of that? I had eczema on my legs so bad that I would scratch my legs in my sleep and our sheets would be bloodied. I left. Within 2 months, the eczema went away. I've never had it again. Stress can screw you up physically as well as mentally. Now, all these things I tell you, that was being bullied, wasn't it? If you think about it. Trying to make nothing of you, trying to make you think that you're no good. If you leave, you're not going to make it. At best, you're going to be flipping hamburgers at, a hamburger joint. You're told this every day. You're told how bad you are. After a while, people start believing it. You know how to not be bullied? Get away from the bully. That's how to do it. Let me tell you though, there's a little trick to this that you have to do. Do any of you know how to trap a monkey? No? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you. And this is what they do down in Sumatra and places like that. It's a bit gory, but I'm going to tell you how it works out. What they do is they drive a stake in the ground. And they tie a rope to that stake, and they take a coconut, and they put a hole in 2 ends. In the bottom end, they put a small hole, and they pull the rope through, tie a knot in it, and pull it down so that the coconut is secured by that knot. Do you follow me? And in the top end, they make the hole big enough that a monkey can get his hand in there if he sticks it in that way. And then they'll put some rice in there or some little goodie. And the monkey will come out, see this thing, and out of curiosity, stick his hand in. As soon as he does that, the people wanting to trap him come out of the woods, banging on sticks, screaming, and the monkey grabs onto that little bit of tidbit, tries to pull his hand out, but he can't leave because his hand clenched, can't get through the hole. They come out and they grab him. And these people do the unthinkable thing of tying him under a table, cutting off the top of his head and eating his brains. This is true. They actually do that. If that monkey had let go of that little bit of rice like that, he could have run free. And there must be something, if you're accepting being bullied by somebody, that you're hanging on to that you don't want to let go. When I left, my wife and I got in our car. We had a car full of our belongings, some of the stuff we had, and we drove off and we left everything behind. We had to give up everything we had there. And right now we're doing okay. I'm a musician. I play 4 to 6 times a week. Thank you. I do talks. As a matter of fact, if you go to therealronmiscavige.com and you put that in, because the church has 500 variations of my name, and they're all, if you put any other variation, it'll take it to a hate site. And if you read what they say about me, I should have been shot yesterday. I'm telling you. They will take anything and say anything about you, character assassinate you. Well, Leah Remini has one, Mike Rinder has one, anybody who's left. They'll do a hate site where they want people to think not your word doesn't mean anything. Everything you're saying is a lie. Go to therealronmiscavige.com. You can hear all these things I'm telling you. You can hear the various interviews I've done. And if any of you would be interested in me doing an interview or speaking at one of your events, I'd be more than happy to do it. That's how to get in touch with me. And you can hear what I told you about the private investigators, okay? That's how you trap a monkey. And if you can give up whatever it is, friendship, whatever you would call that, you're hanging on to, break loose, tell the bully, fuck you, walk away. You're going to be okay. I have a lot more to say, but I'll tell you what. Maybe you'll see me at another event, or if I do an interview, it will be on my website. You can listen to it. But I want to do something for you right now that I know that you're not expecting. This is a pocket trumpet. This is actually a full-size trumpet. but instead of going that way, it winds up this way. I'm going to play something for you, and this is a song that Louis Armstrong's wife wrote. Louis Armstrong's wife. So you probably never heard this before, so I want to give you a little bit of the past, all right? I'll tell you the real reason I did that. One of the bullies, before I left, said, man, you don't know how to play a fucking trumpet. So I made the point. See you later.
Ooh. Inspirational words from an inspirational man. Without any deplatforming efforts from the Church of Scientology, surprisingly. So that's nice. Speaking of winning and not deplatforming, we, with great fanfare, have arrived at our buzzed belief portion of the debate. So we're going to get that going in about 5 minutes. So you have until 3:30 to hang out, you know, do your thing, and then we'll be back here shortly. Thank you.